Welcome back everyone to the Hello World Guide. This is episode number 4 of the Unreal Engine beginner series, and in this video we are going to continue with our our game. And in the last video, if you remember, I'm just going to hit this open button to open up the asset we had opened last time, which should open them up well. So we basically use this code. We understood the blueprint system in the last video, and we use this code to make our player basically move backwards as soon as they start the game. And by the way, this opened up in the other map, not in the map that we had. In order to make the default, change the default map, go under project settings, then maps and modes, and change the editor starter map to whatever you want. So we created this game map. I'm going to select that. I'm going to select the game default map as well. And now I can go ahead and open, and each time Unreal Engine starts now, it should automatically open up in this map. So this was basically what was happening. We were instantly going backwards without stopping, and this time we want to learn how to take input to only make it go when we actually press some keys on our keyboard. Now input in Unreal Engine is actually really simple. What you need to go is go under edit and project settings, and in the project settings you should see down here in engine, inside of engine you should see input here. Just click on that and it should open up, and here you can see this binding section. Well, you can see we have got two kinds of inputs. One is action mappings and one is axis mappings. Now the difference between these two is that action mappings are those inputs that you just kind of press a button, and it either has got two states, like pressed or not pressed. And axis mapping can have like a positive state, a negative state, a bunch of stuff like that. You will understand it better when we actually start using them. So I'm going to create an axis mapping. The reason we are doing an axis mapping is because we want to move forwards and backwards, and we don't want to create different buttons for each of that. So for that we are going to use axis mappings. I'm going to click this plus and expand it. I'm going to rename this axis mapping to be called move forward. Okay, and in here you can see this allows us to select some keys. So for this you can select the W key. I'm going to actually add 4 keys here, and one is going to be the up arrow key. Now I'm also going to add the S keys for moving backward, and then the down arrow key. But for this you can see the scale value here. I'm going to set this scale value to negative. Now the reason we are doing that is that this scale value that we will get here is going to go under this scale value, and depending on whether it's positive or negative, we are going to move either forwards or backwards. So that's the reason we are doing this. So we've got an axis mapping now. That's the advantage. We can put everything inside of one mapping, and it can go forward and backwards just using only one mapping. So that's pretty awesome, and we are already using forward vector here. So all you need to do is delete this tick event, and instead of here you can just search for move forward. And each time you create like a and by the way, each time you create like a new input, it adds 2 nodes to your blueprint editor, and those 2 nodes are called move forward. There's an event called move forward, and there is an axis value called move forward. Now this only gives us whether we have got like positive or negative or just nothing in the axis of the we just selected the scale. It gives us the actual value, while this gives us an event that we can actually hook something up to. So most of the time you will be using this. So I'm going to go ahead and connect this to our movement input, and I'm going to take the axis value, which is going to be positive when we press W and negative when we press S, and I'm going to hook that up to the scale value. If I compile that, if I play, we are not moving, but if I hit the forward button or I hit W, we should start moving, and S should make us go backwards. And you can see that's happening, and that is pretty nice because that's exactly what we want. So now we also need to move left and right. So how are we going to implement that? Well, it's going to be pretty simple. I'm going to go under axis mapping, add a new one called move move right. Okay, and move right, and I'm going to add like 4 of these here as well, and one is going to be D, and the other is going to be the right arrow key. Then this one is going to be A, and this one is going to be the left arrow key. By the way, there are a lot of other things here. If you like actually select that, you can just click on this button and press the key to select the mapping, or you can go in here and select. If you want like a gamepad mapping, there's a ton of stuff in here. You can select whatever you want here. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to make the left ones negative. And if I go in here, yeah, that's right. So I'm going to make these left ones negative, and now we can just basically go here and add a move right node. Remember, we add a node by right clicking, and you want the event, not the actual axis value, and then we're going to drag this out and add movement input. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And in the world, for the world direction, we are going to say get actor. This time, last time we used forward vector to get tell us the direction the player is facing. Now we are going to go get actor right vector, which will give us the direction, well, to the right of the player, which is pretty nice, exactly what we want. Yeah, so basically, yeah, that works. So now we have got our add movement input here as well, and we are going to hook the scale value in here. Now what you should see is that if I hit play, then I can go left and right using the appropriate keys as well, and I can also move diagonally. So you can see that this is basically working, and it's working quite nicely actually. So we can go left, right, forward, backwards, and yeah, we've got basically a complete, almost a complete movement system. But yeah, this was all nice, but we also need to be able to like look around. To have a proper first-person controller, we need to be able to look left and right to change the direction our player is facing. And since we are using actor forward vector here, it should automatically move us in the direction we are actually facing instead of causing any problems. So what in order to do that, that's pretty simple. I'm going to add another axis mapping here, and this is going to be called turn. Now what we want to do is we want to be able to turn with our mouse, not actual keys. And to do that, it's extremely simple. Just go under here, you know, for in this drop down menu, and you can go under mouse. Now mouse has got a bunch of things in here, but you want to use is the things you actually want is this mouse X and mouse Y. So basically, when our mouse moves, if it moves like left to right, like I'm moving my cursor right now, it is basically we are moving on the X axis, and if it moves up and down, it's on the Y. So if we move sideways, we want to be able to turn sideways. So I'm going to select the mouse X in here, and you just want to remain the scale as well, because depending on which direction we are moving, it will automatically make the scale in the right direction. So we are going to add the turn event in here. And now for the function that we actually want to use here, if I drag this out, you want to use add controller. If you go add controller, you can see there are basically three of these: add controller pitch input, roll input, and yaw input. Now these are different kind of rotations. So yaw is basically rotate, the way we want to rotate is called yaw, and rotating like up and down is called pitch, and rotating sideways is called roll. Pretty simple, not that difficult. We want to use yaw here to actually, you know, kind of rotate around the z axis. So I'm going to do that. So for example, if I select this, this is the z axis, and rotating around this is called pitch, and then this is called this axis is called yaw, this is called pitch, and this is called roll. And we obviously want to rotate on the yaw, and we want to, for the value, we can put our turn value. Now if I hit play now, what you should be able to see is that we can turn around, and we can automatically move in whichever direction we are looking, and we can obviously move sideways relative to that direction as well, which is pretty awesome. Now we have got kind of almost a working controller, except the fact that well, there is one thing missing, which is that we cannot look up and down. As I told you before, rotating this way is called pitch. So it should be as simple as adding a new input in our actual project settings. We want to add a new one called look up, and for this we want to select our mouse Y because we want to go up and down, and in here we can just add look up. It should be pretty simple, considering that we only need to go add controller pitch input. We don't want to use roll, obviously we only want to use pitch, and if I do that, you can see that it actually changes nothing. The reason is that our camera, the camera we added in the last video, if you remember, is currently not choosing that rotation of the controller. So a controller is a special thing, and it's not using that rotation, which is causing a bunch of problems, because our turn input is actually rotating the whole player, but for this we only want to rotate the camera. So we are going to select the camera, go under the details panel, and in the camera options you can see use spawn control rotation, and you want to turn that option on. And if you turn this on, you can see we can look up and down as well. But for me it is kind of not working right. We are kind of I'm rotating in the wrong direction. So what you mostly want to do is you want to select this mouse Y to be -1 to look up. So you can see that works now. I can look up and down and left and right, and obviously I moved relative to the correct direction. So yeah, that's pretty awesome. Now we can look around, we can walk, and everything is working. Now, before wrapping up this video, the last thing I would like to add is actually jumping. So our player cannot jump right now. We can move around obviously, but we cannot jump even if I do anything. And jumping is quite simple using the character movement components. So all you need to do is, first of all, for jumping we do not want an axis mapping, because jump is not like an axis that goes forward or backwards. It's an action. When it happens, it just happens. So for that we are going to close our axis mapping and add an action mapping instead. For this I'm going to go ahead and choose jump, and for the key I'm going to just press this button and press the space bar on my keyboard, and you should automatically select the space bar. So I'm going to go in the player and then go ahead and jump, and there are a bunch of functions called jump as well. You want to use the action event jump to actually get the key event here, and you can see this key event is different from the other from the other events, because there we had got look up, we have got an axis value and a this actual execution, and here we have got a press button, a release button, and a key. Now this key is basically what button was actually pressed, because we may have multiple stuff in here, so it tells us which button was pressed, but you don't need to worry about yourself with that. This actually tells us when the key was pressed, and this tells us when it was released. Now we want to basically for most of the time you will want to jump when the key is actually pressed, not when it is released, which can cause a bunch of frustration if you put it on release. So we are going to use the pressed here. So just drag out from pressed, leave the release, you don't need to worry about that, and go here and you say jump. Now this jump also happens to be a function, and you can just click that and it should basically do this. Now if you want to add something else, you can just go ahead and add stop jumping in the released one. So that you only need to add these two things. One is jump, which actually just jumps, and then this stop jumping button is not necessary, but you can add that as a safety measure, I guess. And once you add those, so this pressed and released, you should be able to jump as well. Yeah, you can see I can jump, but my jump is kind of very small, and I also kind of keep flying if I jump. So this is kind of like a realistic movement, but for most games you do not want realistic movement at all. You want some more like snappy movement, so that you can just stop when you want, not like it's in real life, which is the reason that games are interesting. You can do stuff that you cannot do in real life. So we don't want this kind of movement. So I'm going to also, as a bonus tip, show you how to actually change the movement component. So you can just select this component here called character movement. In the details panel, you have got basically everything of the movement component. If you want to increase the jumping, just go under jump/falling and increase this jump z velocity to something like 700. Now we have also got air control, which determines how much we can actually control ourselves in air. If you set that to a whole of 1, then you can just control yourself in air as well as and ground. And one more thing is that if you go under here, you can change this max walk speed to something like if you like it change it to something like 2000, then you can move quite a lot faster, which it may be a bit too fast. So in like I'm going to by default it's 600, I'm going to put it at something like 750, and then I'm going to change my jump z velocity to by default it was 420, I'm going to change that to 700. And that's kind of really awesome, and you can see I can now jump a lot higher. But if I jump, you can see I kind of just, if I'm moving and I jump while I'm moving, I kind of just don't stop when I release my button, but I instead keep floating, which is not what I want. So if I'm running right now, I've got my W key pressed, I jump and I release the key, but it still keeps on going forward. So what I want to do for that is I can go under here, this is the braking deceleration, and you can just set it to something really high like 2048 with a standard value for walking, and if you set it to that, you can see that as soon as I release the button I stop. So yeah, that's pretty awesome. Now we have got a snappy, nice and good feeling character controller for our game. So in the next video we are going to implement something else, and if you have got some cool ideas what you want this game to be, then let me know in the comments, or else I'll just go with what I actually have got the plan to do. So give your feedback in the comments, make sure to like and subscribe, and also share this video with other people, and I will see you in the next video, and bye.